Hello everyone, my name is Niw. In honor of SHINee's anniversary this week, today's video is making a custom Lightstick case with which to hold your precious SHINee Lightstick. This same technique can of course be used to make a Lightstick case for any Lightstick, not just a SHINee one. So I'm gonna go through the method with you, and hopefully anyone and everyone who comes across this video can adapt my method to protect their precious Lightsticks. Now, as you can see, the Lightstick comes with a few little bits and pieces, accessories, the battery thing, and any spare batteries. So I'm going to try and make a place for those in the case as well. Today's video, I'm going to be making like the main structure and the base, and then I'll be releasing another video a little bit later with like handles, a lid, and some decorations or some ideas on how you can decorate your case. As always, we're working on a budget, so this is just stuff that I pulled out of my craft stash again. I used felt because that's what I had, and it has a lot of good structure, so I think you could use any material that you really wanted to, but I wouldn't recommend using something too thin because it's not going to hold the shape of the case. First thing you need to do is figure out a comfortable shape for your Lightstick to like rest in. In my case, I originally did just kind of like a square on the top, and then figured that maybe my Lightstick would rattle around too much in there if I did that. So as you can see on screen, I'm making like a template just to see if the Lightstick can comfortably pass through the hole that I'm making. And once I've established that, I can go ahead with making cutting the shapes out of felt. As you can see, my first draft wasn't a perfect fit, so I just adjusted it a little bit to fit better. Now, if you're a shawol and you're planning on making this for a SHINee Lightstick, today is your lucky day because I have all the measurements ready to go for you. You don't have to do any like figuring it out or maths yourself. You can just copy this, and I promise you it works. But like I said, if you are using or trying to make this for a different Lightstick, it's totally doable. It's really customizable. You just need to like trace your shape and make sure that it'll like fit in there nice and snug to stop it from like jostling around when you're carrying your Lightstick. So I used 3 vaguely SHINee affiliated colors from mine just because I have this like big pack of felt sheets and I only have 1 sheet of each color, so this is just what I had, and I didn't want to like buy extra materials, so I decided to try and make what I had work. Actually, I think it turned out pretty good, but you can obviously just use 1 color, or you can color block it however you choose to. It's completely up to you. And as you can see here, I'm like sketching an incredibly terrible diagram of the different pieces that you're going to need to cut out of your felt. So in the case of mine, because the SHINee Lightstick is like roughly 9 centimeters kind of thick at its thickest point, the walls for the inner part of the case I made 10 centimeters because you have to like make allowances for seam allowance. And for the most part, I used a 1/2 centimeter seam allowance for this case. And then obviously there's the top piece, which is the hollowed out shape of your Lightstick, and then a bottom piece or back piece, which forms the back of the box essentially. And then we have like an outer wall, which has to be a little bit thicker to allow for you to get some fluff in behind your Lightstick in the case. I know this all sounds kind of crazy right now, but it's gonna make sense once we start putting it together and you see the final product. I managed to just squeeze my Lightstick pieces onto the 2 kind of greeny colors, and I only used the white for like the cutout piece, as you'll see. So you only need about 2.5 sheets of this felt, but that's of course not including the accessories that we're gonna add later. So like the lid, I'm gonna add like a handle and a strap and stuff like that. So Realistically, if you're doing this project, you probably need more than 2.5 sheets of felt, but you know. Oh, and here I'm just marking out which pieces I wanted to do in each color, which is useful if you're making this yourself, to like do a little diagram for yourself so you know what you're doing and you don't run out of a certain color. First part I cut out was the bottom of the Lightstick case, or rather the part of the Lightstick case that the Lightstick will rest on. And so I cut this part out, giving it a 0.5 centimeter seam allowance all the way around. And the reason the seam allowance is so teeny tiny is because I hand sewed this whole thing together. If you were doing this on machine, which you could totally do, I would suggest probably giving it a slightly bigger seam allowance. But for me, I wanted to do it by hand, A, so I could get these smaller seams and get into like these corners and stuff without having to like fight the machine, and B, because I know a lot of people don't have sewing machines, so you know, you can totally do this without a sewing machine, as I'm gonna show you in this video. The shiny Lightstick is a symmetrical shape, so I just made sure that both sides were the same by folding in half and cutting off any excess. Second piece, these are my 10 centimeter high walls, which is the part of the case that's going to be going directly around the Lightstick. I can't give you a exact measurement on how much you'll need for this. It really depends on the like perimeter of your Lightstick. For me, when I ran out, I just sewed another 10 centimeter strip to it and kept going, and you'll see what I mean in just a minute. For precision's sake, I marked the seam allowance onto the felt just so I could sew in a straight line and not have to worry about my stitches going all wonky and weird. The name of the game now is to always be having your right sides kissing together as you go ahead with sewing. This is going to get a little bit confusing because you're like basically building a geometric shape out of felt. And so the best advice I can give you is just always make sure that your right sides are kissing or touching, and you should be good to go. So right sides of your projects, so the nice sides, are touching, and now you just gotta sew a straight line. So essentially it's just sewing in a straight line around the perimeter. Now the corners are where it gets like a little bit tricky. You can see in the footage that I'm just kind of like massaging the straight piece of felt to go around the corner and essentially like forcing it, pinning it down, and then sewing it. I figured out pretty quickly that you should put just like a little clip. When you get to a corner, just put a little slit in the, what is it called? Put a little slit in the seam allowance, and then you'll be able to turn really, really easily, like pivot on that point and get all the way around the perimeter that way. So once you've sewn around the whole perimeter, you're just going to trim off the excess and then sew up that last side seam so that you have like a full structure, and you're done the first part. Now you have what is essentially a tiny custom made coffin for your Lightstick. Now I found that my like coffin walls were a little bit too high for the Lightstick, so I'm going to compensate for that rather, by adding an extra 0.5 centimeter on the seam allowance. So the seam allowance for this part is going to be 1 centimeter, and that's just me making a slight adjustment for my pattern. Again, I'm cutting docks, slits in the corner just to help the seam allowance, I don't know, fit around the corners, work together better, you know, form the shape more cohesively. Okay, so this one's a little bit trickier than last time, but again, we're just kissing together the right sides of the fabric. So the fabric, or pieces of the felt that we want to be on the outside eventually, we are now pushing together, pinning together, sewing together around the edges. Then when you've finished going all the way around the perimeter, he should look a little bit like this. It's gonna look a little bit wonky and you're gonna have to massage it into place, but I promise you it will only get better. Next step is pretty similar to the first step, except I'm going around the perimeter of the rectangle with a 12 centimeter wide strip of fabric. This is forming the like outer box of our Lightstick case. As you can see, I'm like matching up the seam in my like felt pieces with the seam of the coffin wall. If you have like a longer piece of or bigger piece of felt, or you're using a bigger piece of fabric, then you won't have to worry about like seams and stuff. But yeah, the advice I would give you is if you do have seams in your like little strips of fabric / wool pieces, lining them up will just make your project look a little bit neater in the end. I had one day off over the weekend that I was like trying to get this project done in, and then here you can see the footage of me viciously stabbing myself in my thumb, just giving up for the day. So I finished sewing the outer walls on off camera on a newer, brighter, less angry day. And now all that's left to do is to sew the bottom of the box, I guess. Now this one's a little bit different to how we've sewn on all the other pieces. So everything is inside out, and the reason for that is because we want to sew the majority of the bottom of the box on inside out, with like all of the guts of the the Lightstick case lying out, so that we can flip it all inside out later and, you know, hide all of those seams on the inside. So what I did was just marked all the corners of the box with pins, and then lined up this strip of felt. I think mine was 39 centimeters, no, 13 centimeters by 30 centimeters. And the top of the box is like 14 centimeters by 30 centimeters. So like I lost a centimeter somewhere. I don't know what happened. It doesn't really matter too much as long as you just, you know, match stuff up and hide stuff inside seams. If you gotta, just do what you gotta do to make it work. In the end, it'll still look totally fine, I promise. And would you look at that, I found where that lost centimeter went. So as you can see, I had like a little bit of excess at the bottom of this, and I'm just like sewing the seam in a diagonal, and you totally cannot notice once you turn everything inside out, I promise. So rather than like ripping your whole project apart if you end up hitting a problem, this is the solution. You know, just make workarounds. I think that's the golden rule of DIY and handcrafting. So I haven't sewn all the way around the outside of this box. I've left a little bit of a gap so that we can turn everything inside out or right side round, and also so we have a place to put the stuffing inside the box. This was the moment of truth for me because I had no idea whether this was gonna work, and I'd spent so much time like sewing or hand sewing all these like bits of felt together. So I was extremely excited when I, you know, pulled all of the felt through and like kind of eased all of the corners into where they were supposed to be and arranged everything, and it looked pretty good. It could definitely be improved upon. You know, like I always say in like all of the videos I do, this is the first time that I'm trying something, and some things work out really, really well, and some things obviously need improvement if I were to do it again. I would love to like come at this again. I haven't even finished this one and I'm already thinking about doing it again. But yeah, I'm pretty pleased with how it turned out. So when it came time to stuff my Lightstick case, I left the Lightstick in there for like parts of it, just so that I could try and ease the stuffing fluff around, you know, the Lightstick and mold it to the shape. This is just a lot of fiddling around, shoving fluff into different corners, you know, pushing fluff away from where it shouldn't be, massaging the box until it resembles a shape that you want it to. I would say overfilling is probably slightly better than underfilling in this case, just because this polyfill stuff tends to like compact as time passes. So if you're gonna use this case to actually carry your light stick around outside, you might get a little bit of a beating. That said, if you understuff it and then you find that you want to add more later, it's really easy just to pick open a seam, stuff some more fluff in there, and then hand sew it back up. But yeah, essentially it's just stuff as much fluff in there as you think you need, massage it around, beat it up, shove the light stick in there, put some more in, take it out, until you're happy with the results. And when you're finished, well, when I was finished, I just used a simple ladder stitch to close up the hole, and that's part one of this video finished. I've actually really wanted to do this for a really long time, because I think it was like Super Junior, they got like a official little like case from SM for their light stick, and I thought it was really cute. And then they just never made one for SHINee, and I was always kind of like about it. And I knew the fans have made light stick cases for SHINee over the years, and I always just seem to miss it. I don't have any money when it's happening. But this light stick case cost me virtually nothing, because obviously I had all of this stuff at my house already. But even if you were to buy the supplies, I think felt sheets are like so inexpensive. You know, I think it's definitely under $1 for a sheet. And then obviously you just need like a needle and a thread. And all this fluff is like actually just left over from when I used to have a ton of cushions on my bed. This actually, I think, is more of an effective case than I ever thought it would be, because like the polyfill like hugs the light stick. Like once you shove it in there, I was like bouncing the light stick around in it and rolling it around and doing all sorts of stuff with it, and the light stick was like held inside like it's like a warm hug from the polyfill. So it exceeded even my expectations in that respect. But yeah, I'm also really proud of myself in a weird way for getting this out for SHINee's anniversary. It would like really make my day if this was, you know, useful to other shawols who, you know, perhaps don't have access to being able to buy a case for their light stick. I think these days, you know, like a case for your light stick might feel less necessary, because, you know, who's taking their light stick out and about and going places? There's no, you know, events thanks to COVID. But I don't know, I still pack my light stick into my bag and go to my friend's place and we watch the SHINee live streams and stuff with our little light stick. So, you know, my light stick is still getting some action out and about. So, you know, at least it's gonna travel in style now. Anyway, happy SHINee anniversary, happy SHINee day, happy SHINee week. And if you're a shawol and you thought this was a neat idea, I would love to hear from you in the comments or on Twitter or whatever. And I hope everyone has a wonderful week and a wonderful SHINee day. And we'll see you next week on the channel. Thank you for watching. Bye.